you ever wondered who the rarest species in your favorite fictional universe is? Well, in today's video, I'm exploring movies, books, TV series, and more to find the 20 rarest creatures in fiction. Now, before we begin, I want to set one rule, because otherwise this video is going to get really boring really soon. And that's to disqualify all one-of-a-kind species, because characters like Godzilla or Smaug are well known to be the last of their species. I'll be left with just 20 creatures with one remaining specimen in the wild. With that, let's start off at number 20, the Thestrals from Harry Potter. You can only see a Thestral if you've witnessed and fully accepted death, meaning Thestral sightings are already pretty rare. But even then, these creatures can hardly be found, and the only known colony being Thestrals that pull the Hogwarts carriages every year. The herd at Hogwarts has just over 50 animals, but since Thestrals live in forests and are invisible to most of the population, it's reasonable to believe that over 1,000 of them are alive in the wild. Next up, we have the Exogorth from Star Wars at number 19. Now this might feel like a strange pick since these creatures live in outer space and have no natural predators, but that's exactly the point. The Exogorth is a silicone-based life form that lives inside asteroid caverns, feeds on minerals, and grows to over 900 meters long. The sheer requirements for Exogorth survival make them extraordinarily rare, and most estimates predict no more than 1,000 of them in the entire universe. Moving on to number 18, I have the Rooks from Throne of Glass. These are enormous golden eagle-like birds that are large enough to carry 2 riders at once. Rooks form deep, almost familial bonds with riders, and presently, there are 6 clans of Rook riders in the Kagan's Empire, living in the Taven Mountains. With 6 clans and assuming somewhere between 100 and 200 birds per clan, we're looking at roughly 600 to 1,200 individual Rooks, but that number is actively shrinking. Number 17 is the Tonberry, a little green menace that has been terrorizing Final Fantasy players since 1992. Don't let the hood and lantern fool you, this creature is one of the most feared enemies in the entire franchise. In Final Fantasy XIV, the lore goes deep. Tonberries were once the citizens of the ancient Nenian civilization, transformed into their current form by a plague called the Green Death. Centuries of isolation and slaughter by players put their population at just under 1,000. At number 16, we have the Horta from Star Trek. The Horta is a silicone-based life form that's essentially a living lump of rock that can melt through solid stone with its powerful acid. Every 50,000 years, the entire Horta species dies except for one individual, who must guard thousands of eggs alone until they hatch and restart the cycle. Even though their population is about 1,000 at the end of the episode, their unique lifestyle makes the Horta exceptionally rare, while their eggs are hatching. Number 15 is the Leishan from the world of The Witcher. Also known as Spriggan in some translations, these creatures are ancient nature spirits that claim dominion over entire forests. A Leishan marks its territory with totems made of bone and wood, and any human settlement that encroaches on its territory is swiftly dealt with. Geralt of Rivia, one of the most prolific monster hunters in the world, has encountered only a handful in his lifetime, and there are likely fewer than 100 Leishan across the entire continent. At number 14, I have one of Dungeons & Dragons' most ancient and disturbing monsters, the Aboleth. These creatures were swimming through primordial seas before the first deity drew breath, and they remember it all through their ancestral memories. Their low population is more about solitude than danger, and the Aboleth's contempt of nearly all other life, including each other, places their population at around 800. We're going back to the wizarding world for number 13, Lethifold from Harry Potter. Also known as the Living Shroud, this creature holds the highest possible danger rating from the Ministry of Magic. It looks like a thin black cloak that glides silently at night, smothers sleeping victims, digests them whole, and leaves no trace that the person ever existed. In Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Newt Scamander notes that Lethifolds are native to tropical climates and are rarely encountered, with an estimated population of over 500. Things take an even darker turn at number 12, with the Judas breed from the Mimic franchise. This hybrid of mantis and termite was designed to infiltrate cockroach populations and kill them, but 3 years later, the insect somehow evolved over thousands of generations to reach human size and learn how to mimic their new prey. Despite humanity's best efforts to eradicate the Judas breed, a few always survive, and while their population never exceeds a few hundred, it only takes a handful of survivors to start the nightmare again. Number 11 is probably the cutest on our list, as I have the Flurkin from the Marvel Universe. Flurkins look exactly like domestic cats, but inside each one exists a pocket dimension, access through a mouth that is capable of devouring enemies, vehicles, and even the Tesseract. In the Marvel comics, Flurkins were driven nearly to extinction, and the last 100 or so of them only survived by looking exactly like the most harmless creature imaginable. Number 10 is easily my most tragic pick, the Non-Men from the Second Apocalypse. The Non-Men were the first great civilization of Erwa, and are immortal masters of sorcery and architecture. But here's the catch. Their minds are not immortal. Over the millennia, the Non-Men's memories begin to collapse into each other, driving them all insane. By the time of the novels, the Non-Men are down to a single surviving stronghold, Ishtarabinth, with a population somewhere below 100. At number 9, I have the Leviathans from Mass Effect, a group of massive, cuttlefish-like beings that dominated the Milky Way galaxy over a billion years ago. The Catalyst used Leviathan genetic material to create Harbinger, the first Reaper, and then used subsequent Reapers to harvest most of the Leviathan population. The survivors did the only thing they could, hid at the bottom of deep ocean planets. We've only seen 3 Leviathans so far, but estimates place their population at around 70. Number 8 is the Ents from Lord of the Rings, who are slowly going extinct. The Ents are the shepherds of the trees, and their greatest crisis isn't Saruman, it's the Entwives. Centuries ago, the Entwives wandered away to tend their gardens in the east, and they never came back, with no Ent finding an Entwife since the Second Age. The Ents of Fangorn are the last of these majestic tree creatures, and they currently number around 50. Number 7 is the Direwolves from Game of Thrones, who once roamed free in great numbers south of the Wall. By the time Game of Thrones begins, they're functionally extinct below the frozen north, with the last known pack of under 50 members living somewhere beyond civilization. By the end of the series, Ghost, Jon Snow's loyal albino, is among the last of this great species that once ruled the forests of Westeros. Moving on to number 6, we have the Great Leonopteryx from the Avatar franchise. The Great Leonopteryx ranks at the top of the food chain on Pandora, and have a population of just over 30 because of their territorial, hyper-aggressive nature. Even the Banshees, the flying mounts Na'vi train their whole lives to bond with, flee in terror from them. In all of Na'vi history, only 5 people have ever tamed a Toruk before Jake Sully, and those 5 riders became legends that shaped the cultural history of the Na'vi people. Number 5 brings us to the Engineers from the Alien franchise. These massive, pale humanoids stand at nearly 9 feet tall and were the species responsible for seeding life on Earth billions of years ago. Their civilization had mastered genetic engineering and faster-than-light travel, but during the events of Alien Covenant, they were almost completely wiped out by the android David. Any engineers that survived are scattered across the galaxy, on distant ships and isolated outposts, placing their population at about 2 dozen. At number 4, we have the Daleks from the Doctor Who universe. These mutated squid-like creatures are encased in their iconic Pepperbot battle armor, and numbered in the billions during their peak. Then came the Last Great War, where the Time Lords and Daleks nearly exterminated each other. At their lowest point, there may have been as few as 4 Daleks left in existence, but current estimates place at least 20 survivors in the Doctor Who universe. Coming in at number 3 is another massive being from the Star Wars universe, the Summa Verminoth. The only one we've seen on screen lurks in the Akkadi's Maelstrom, a hypermatter storm so deadly that virtually no ship can navigate it. The Summa Verminoth is a colossal beast that dwarfs capital ships and uses electrified tentacles to trap its prey. Given its extreme habitat and how little is known of the species, it's likely that fewer than 10 Summa Verminoth exist across the galaxy. At number 2, I have the Sestrum from the Chronicle of the Unhewn Throne trilogy. The Sestrum are an ancient immortal race that predated humanity and nearly wiped out the human race, but humanity brought back and hunted the Sestrum to extinction over thousands of years. By the time the trilogy takes place, the Sestrum are essentially gone, with only about 10 survivors hiding among humanity. And finally, we return to the Doctor Who franchise with number 1, the Time Lords. The Time Lords of Gallifrey were the most powerful species in the universe thanks to their mastery of time travel. The last great time war between the Time Lords and the Daleks ended with the Doctor making a choice to end both species. But the thing about Doctor Who is that time is not linear. New Time Lords have been introduced at multiple points in the series, but aside from a few rare episodes, there have never been more than 5 alive at any given time. And there you have it, the 20 rarest creatures in all of fiction. Were there any creatures that you would like to have seen instead? Let me know in the comments down below.